Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Bill and Amon's Bogus Hangout. Uh, we're joined by a good crew today. Going to have everybody introduce themselves and tell us what they're up to for next week or so. Fabrizio, how are you?
Hello. Hi. Good. Thank you. Last week, I was in New York last week. I went to the meander, organized by Gianluca. It's quite nice actually. I've been to the one in London as well, and it was quite of a different crowd. You end up meeting the same people if you go to conferences in London, and it was quite refreshing to meet someone new. And then that was my lead. And then I stayed in New York to work because since I was there, it was making more sense. But that was last week.
Did you enjoy your trip to New York?
It's good, but equally tiring. So now coming back, I didn't manage to sleep, and on the flight, and then I slept the full Sunday, and then last night I didn't sleep because I was not tired. So it's good to go, and especially to work with colleagues there, because we have offices there, and being in the same office helps, even though at the end you end up having a break chat. But then the traveling back and forth can be quite tiring. So, yeah. But once in a while I like it. It's a good change.
Okay. Lyndon, why don't you tell us how you've been doing and what you're up to for next week?
I've been doing good. What have I been doing this week that's interesting? I've been tweaking my Twitter strategy or Twitter technique rather, and trying out a few new things, and that's been interesting. Basically is retweeting a lot more of stuff I think is worthy. And because I saw other people doing it and getting real success, I thought, well, let's just try it, even though I think it's a bit spammy, but it's actually been quite interesting, and it's had some very interesting success. So that's what I've been doing, mainly on the social media side, plus knocking out a few blog posts that some people have loved and some people have hated, so there's been interesting arguments about that. And what am I doing next week? Probably more of the same. And so just sharing what I think, still trying to figure out what content marketing means and how to explain it, and how to talk to real people about it, and not just people like you guys. And so just trying to figuring it all out.
It's good to hear. Steve, how have you been, Steve? And what have you been up to in the last week or so? You're muted. No, just can't hear you. I don't see a muted symbol.
Steve's having technical difficulty.
Not hearing you. We're going to have to come back to you. Terry, how have you been, and what have you been up to?
Oh, I'm always good and up to no good. So, the usual, trying to keep things moving along, working on some new navigation for a website. It wasn't passing around the link equity properly. Kind of had it sectioned off, which is never good.
Do you use the phrase link equity fairly regularly? I've been seeing people use terms like link juice, which I'm not sure I like.
Juice. Yeah, Dave and I started calling it link equity years ago, because that's what it actually is. If it's like a currency for websites, that's why I call it that.
Right, I've been using that too, but
that's probably where we got it, in fact. Knowing Dave, because that's where I picked it up too.
Okay, I've been spending the morning working on a blog post involving Google patenting cloud-based vending machines. I'm not sure how new they are, but if they're competing for cloud services and there are millions and millions of vending machines across the world, I guess that's good use for cloud services. I'm not sure how much Coca-Cola they might sell, but
I worked for a company and vending was part of our business. The most cost intensive part of that is actually making sure they're stocked and picking up the coins. You can waste a lot of time going to machines that don't need anything. So I can see why cloud-based, if they're collecting information from the machines, that would be huge, which I'm sure that's what Google is doing.
well, an important part of it looks like the ability to use your phone to buy products from machines. So if you're entering digital codes, you're not entering coins. You don't have to empty the coins out of machines as frequently. Makes sense.
Still have to put Coke in it though.
Yeah.
Well, more recent ones, they have contactless cards, like, or even just paying by cards, and then they almost have an Android application that goes in the background, which means it's probably way smarter, and they can even customize products and stuff way more than the old vendor machine, which is like was purely mechanical. So you just have a display on the front, and then in the back you have like a bunch of products where you buy things like. And there was one in the hotel where I was staying the other week, and you can buy things like USB chargers. It's all small items at the end, but like it was not just like beverages. But I guess in that case, it's important to understand what people want, and because you have to stock that eventually.
I'm sort of still making my way through the patent. I didn't see a whole lot of things that looked really unique or innovative beyond being able to pay walking up to a machine with your phone out, which, you know, I think I remember seeing vending machines in 2013, 2012 that use Android Pay. I'm not sure how much different it is, except I guess a lot of computing goes on in the cloud.
Unless they can 3D print your item and spit it out, otherwise it becomes. That's why, like, I struggle to find vending machines that fascinating, because it's always down to the little stock that they have inside. And I'm not an expert of that field, but like there's limited amount of stock that you can have in that machine, and like no matter if they're refilled on a daily basis in the most busy places, but yes, it's still what 20, 30 items. I don't know how much more can you fit.
The one thing I know about vending machines, which is very important, is they actually kill more people than sharks in the US. Actually, I think it was 2010. There was an article published. They worked out that I think 6 people over a 5-year period had been killed by using vending machines, and only 3 people had been killed by sharks.
Mm-hmm. A client who sold mosquito netting, and they used to love the fact that mosquitoes were much more deadly than sharks were.
Oh, very much so, yeah. Or malaria, yeah. That's the big thing. I mean, Bill Gates is really into that, isn't he?
Yeah.
And saying that, Jaws was on the other night. I don't know if, and I was one of the people who was around when it was first on cinema, and that is such a great film. You know, it hasn't dated a bit. It's great.
My mother grew up in the town that the story behind Jaws was based upon. It's in New Jersey. It was a shark swam into a river in New Jersey, and the shark was floating up and down the river, terrorizing people.
Yeah, there's something about sharks, isn't it? It's a prehistoric, this primeval thing that, you know, you can't see it in the water. And of course, the truth is they want to eat people. They're basically just bite your leg off, see that you're not a seal, and then throw you back into the sea. So you might lose a leg, but I suppose it's good. I know there was a good story this week about the Australian fisherman. The shark jumped into his boat, and he was a 73-year-old guy, and if you can listen to the audio of how he tells his tale, it's quite interesting. 2-meter shark, great white. Anyway, on other shark news. So, Bill, you had an interesting thing this week about internal links. I think I read your blog post. I don't think I quite understand it. I just wondered what the conclusion you had from that. You'd looked at you're questioning the value of internal links, and I wonder how they gauge against external links or links that are coming into your website.
I did a tweet asking about what the value of internal links were based upon something somebody else had written. So it wasn't really something about my blog, but it was...
my mistake. I thought I read it on your blog.
No, I wrote something about Google looking at the highest ranking result for a query, and if it wasn't authoritative enough, they might do another search for a revision of that query to see if there was a more authoritative result and show that as the top result in the results for the initial query. Which
they'd be doing that. Whoops, sorry.
Which means being authoritative has better results than being relevant. So if you can do things that make you look more authoritative, you're better off doing it. And they updated the Quality Raters Guide on the 11th to include more stuff about expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness.
I think those are becoming more metrics, more important metrics to SEO than link equity.
I think they are too.
What's that? Authority signal?
I recently was looking at 5 different sites in the same industry, all dominating the SERPs. The worst of the 5 sites had 330,000 links to it. The best site had 300 links to it of higher quality, but about the same citation flow, but more trust. That's using majestic metrics. People don't understand citation flow and trust flow.
What's the difference between citation flow and trust flow? Because I'm not really a technical SEO, so I'm here to learn.
Well, I'm a technical SEO, but not a linking guy. So my explanation is citation flow is about the numbers and the quality coming into them, and the trust flow is how authoritative that site is coming into you. That's how I kind of look at it. I don't even know if that's...
Although when you say that site, isn't it more specifically that page rather than the site? Because as far as I understand it, domains don't necessarily...
Yeah, page. But if you look a site, the homepage always has the most link equity. In fact, if your site isn't like that, you're probably going to draw more bad radar from Google than if it's the opposite, because it's unnatural for internal pages or link equity than the homepage.
I've seen it differently. I've seen internal pages rank higher than the homepage. Back in the days when we used to have page rank on a toolbar.
Right. Oh, so you're saying they had higher page rank than the homepage?
I had one site that had a currency converter on it, and a bunch of other online stores linked to that currency converter so that their customers could use it to translate their currency into dollars. So it had a fairly high page rank. It had a higher page rank than the homepage's site.
I would say that's not the norm by any means.
It was a difficult thing to program into HTML. So a lot of people were just linking to ours instead of doing it themselves, which they could have. I don't know why they didn't.
I worked for a mortgage company at the time, and you have to guarantee that your calculations are exact or you're going to get your bum suit off.
Yeah. But I guess like I think it's not impossible, as Bill said, that one component of the site down the line, which is not the homepage, has got actually more authority. But like probably what Terry was saying, that when it comes to actual external links, is unnatural. That like so like I also have like I also work on a site where like literally a subfolder was stronger than the homepage, but like if that is a normal company, normal people would link to the homepage, right? They, like the press or whoever like is mentioning your company, what is the chance of them having a URL down the line versus like linking to the homepage? Unless the URL down the line is the main product, is the main, I don't know. But like it's generally easier to pick, you know, company.com and link to that, whatever you're talking about, even though their main service is a folder down the line.
The other thing too is, Bill, that probably that converter had other very authoritative sites and with a lot of high trust values as well, linking to it. But the thing that I find hard to fathom about that is the juice from that page, if it has navigation for the homepage on it, that gets passed to that homepage.
It passes some, but it didn't pass all the page rank, right?
Right. Yeah. Partial.
Yeah.
But if it only linked to the homepage, that'd be one way to pass as much as possible to the homepage.
Right, but we wanted the other pages to rank because of it too. So we linked to them too.
Yeah. But when you got something like that, it's easier to manipulate things, that's for sure.
Right, but we were ranking for lots of keywords. We wanted to continue to.
Oh yeah, that's always the best. More visibility, the better.
Right.
Gee, Steve, you would have something to say on this topic. Oh, he's still not working.
So if we have a bit of a lull, I have another question. So it said that site-wide links that are coming to your website are not necessarily things that should be sought after, but how does that relate, or how does that compare to internal links? So if all of your internal links point to one page, as far as I'm aware, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. So site-wide links from an internal perspective is good, but coming from an outside perspective is not so good. Is that, I wonder what your thoughts are on that?
When Google came out with the patent that talks about reasonable surfer, where they sort of redefine how PageRank works. One of the things they said was a lot of websites have links to pages like terms of service. And chances are we're not going to send too much PageRank to that page. We're going to limit it. So if you have site-wide links to a certain page and it doesn't seem to be an important page, Google might not send as much PageRank to it as it would other pages.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes sense as also that those footer links that you always see that seem to be the norm, that are not important, they usually include the web designer that creating the site. I mean, I assume that they're somewhat discounted from what you're saying.
They've referred to some footer links on some sites as affiliated links. Sites that are affiliated with the site that you're looking at. They might be owned by the same people, for instance. And they wouldn't send full amount of PageRank to those links either.
I guess it's also like old school bad and terrible habits of web designers to put a link back to their site when they were designing something. You know, that might have been also another reason why we will have to be slightly smarter in well, that's not an internal link, I guess, but it's still coming from the home page or like it's within the template.
Yeah, I've occasionally seen SEO companies do the same thing, although it's not usual, because I think we realise that it's not necessarily best practice. But I've never seen a very good SEO company do that.
I think we've had people like Matt Cutts telling us not a good idea. We shouldn't be doing it.
And also, it's quite likely that beyond the, so if you think it forget about SEO, but like imagine you designing a site that says, you know, a restaurant, whatever, and you link back to a web design agency. Who cares? It's like there's no any commercial value, or unless you open to somehow spot a customer, so you just do it for the link itself, because I don't think anyone ever converted by going to a link and discovering a random web design agency, depending on the business, I guess, but you know.
I think traditionally we always sort of figured Google will take care of those links. Google won't send all kinds of PageRank through them.
No. I always no follow them. When I do use them, I no follow them. Because I don't want to take PageRank from my clients. When you do that, you're actually taking PageRank from your clients. I don't think that's right.
Wait, is that true? That because I've heard a few things around about PageRank.
PageRank is the value. PageRank is the link equity that the page has divided by the number of links on it. So if I add a link to every page, I'm taking PageRank from that client. That's
the way that PageRank was originally officially set up according to the papers about PageRank. Matt Cutts wrote on his blog at some point in time that it really changed around like almost immediately from when they first implemented it. So it wasn't just an equal division amongst all the links on a page.
Right. I can see that. One thing that is kind of being debated too is the value of footer links over other links on a page. I've always believed footer links are almost useless.
Well, Google has said that they discount footer links anyway, for the most part.
I think that's true with sidebar links too.
Yeah, I mean, that's been for some time now, but
Yeah.
particularly the footer links because they just got abused so badly.
What about the navigation across the top? Because that's what you're actually talking about is navigation on a website. So if you have navigation across the top, down one side, and in the footer, right? That's all pretty well segmented and probably only counted once.
They may look at clusters if you have like the same things in top navigation as in the footer navigation going to the same pages and say they're clusters of links that are, and they may only count those once.
Right.
And also, what about those the page? This is being the link Q&A, isn't it? Those CSS drop-down boxes where you hover over and you get 100 internal linking pages. So and it's all long tail, and how does that pass equity?
Those are normally HTML. They're often referred to as directory style drop downs, and they may focus a lot more on being more like long tail directory links, but they act like top navigation.
I mean, I've used them a few times and I've found that they work mainly for like 4 or 5 keyword phrases that are quite weak, and so that because most other competitors are not optimizing their pages and their internal link structure to those keywords anyway. So it seems like where there's weak competition that they do pass enough for them to rank. But I just wondered if anybody else had an experience of those, because they seem quite common.
So a lot of variety in UX in terms of what people decide to do with navigation to show off links to pages. I think there's a whole web full of different approaches.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that Google does not come out and say this is a template of how a website should be, and you follow this. They didn't tell us much, really, do they? So a lot of it.
They definitely try.
But like on this subject, we have an invite program, which like means that people can send links to their friends and invite friends to join TransferWise, and so most of the times people start abusing it, and so maybe they put it in the navigation of their site, for instance, and all in a sudden you start having 40,000 links from
It's those SEO people, you just can't trust them.
Yeah, no, but like, and also the program is meant to invite a friend, someone you know. You're not allowed to put it on a website, and invite people that you don't know. But equally, like that thing is slightly safer because it passed through redirects, which are tagged and all this kind of stuff. So Google, I guess, is pretty smart and spotting. But still, sometimes we get these notifications in Search Console. I can see. But I'm pretty positive that they ignore that, because literally these people put in the template, and it doesn't happen often. Literally happens 2 times, and then they realize that it was not a good idea, or actually we didn't allow them to join the program, because obviously they were not inviting a friend by posting that on 40,000 pages, and yeah. But like I think that like from like Google point of view, they ignored this stuff because we didn't see anything changing on any page or any like. Basically, I think that discounted this type of links because they were literally like 50,000 pages side pointing exactly to the same page in the same position of their template. So
You're talking about refer a friend links.
Yeah, but like people
an e-commerce site. E-commerce websites have lots of extra features like wish lists and compare product links, often things that robots meta no index out, because why have that many extra pages to distribute PageRank to when they're not things that people will search for?
Like say in our case, these pages don't get indexed. It's just them linking in bulk to one page. On our side, no problem. It's more for on that
Jen,
side.
in the comments, you're referring to the new quality rater guidelines. Those were the ones that were published on the 11th.
Yes. Well, I don't know if they were posted on the 11th, but
they're dated the 11th.
yeah, they're dated the 11th.
In the there was a Google research blog post that linked to them on quality, and it originally linked to some raters guidelines that were updated in March.
Yes, that was the last big update.
But they changed the link to point to the newer ones when the new ones came out. And they didn't say anything otherwise anywhere.
Nope.
Right. So I noticed that like 2-3 weeks ago, and I linked to them in my last blog post. I was wondering why nobody else was talking about them.
Yeah, I know a couple of people said they looked at them and they looked identical, but I just finished going through line by line by line by line. And there actually were some interesting changes that they made this time around.
Copy escape.
Is there anything that made you think of Project Owl and authoritativeness?
This update was more to do with just more clarification, I guess. They made some clarification to their new their upsetting offensive flag that they added with the last ones. So with the upsetting offensive, obviously that was to target fake news or sites like, did the Holocaust happen? And the site saying, no, it didn't, kind of thing. So it sounds like that some raters were just, if the topic was upsetting in any kind of way, like statistics on child abuse, they were rating it as upsetting and offensive, just wholesale, without considering whether it's upsetting and offensive
and accurate
for inaccuracy, which is what Google is actually targeting. So a lot of it was quite a bit of detailing more about what should be considered upsetting and offensive, as opposed to just being a topic that is upsetting and offensive. For news sites, they made an interesting change because previously, with the last update, they lumped all news sites into Your Money or Your Life. So no matter what kind of topic your news site was on, because if you were any kind of a news site, suddenly you were held up to this higher standard. So they clarified that as well and said that they basically, it's only still the topics that, affect, what do they say, future happiness, health, or financial stability as being a news site for Your Money or Your Life. But if you're outside of those topic areas, you're not being held to those higher standards as a news site. The other things that changed were screenshots were changed. They made another featured snippet example to show that no featured snippets aren't always accurate, which, Google has come under a lot of fire for that. So they added an example that showed clearly that featured snippets are not always 100% accurate. Everything else was pretty well minor changes. They removed some screenshots, they added some new ones, and that was about it. So it wasn't a big major change.
So content in interactive divs is still secondary content?
In GIFs?
Divs, i.e. you click it, it shows content.
Accordion folds.
Yeah, well, they've never specifically talked about accordion folds that I remember off the top of my head. That's been more, they've talked about that from a quality perspective. Google has said that for desktop content, anything that's behind an accordion obviously gets a lot less weight when they're ranking pages. However, in mobile, with the new mobile first thing that they're going to be doing, anything in an accordion does not get weighted less because it's a usability thing, right? It's a lot easier for you to navigate a big, huge Wikipedia page if stuff's hidden behind those collapsible things on mobile.
So in other words, that's anything that's in a div and not displayed on render is probably
Oh, well,
not much.
well, if you're talking about fetch and render, because sometimes depending on how Googlebot is interacting with that, if Googlebot doesn't see it, then because like people can do weird, on click and just weird JavaScript stuff. So if Googlebot can't do it when you do the fetch and render, or can't see it when they do the fetch and render, then obviously it's not going to be ranked on that content regardless.
But it does index it.
If it's visible, yes. But obviously, we're a long ways from the days of hidden text, right?
No, they index stuff that's not displayed too.
Yeah, like I said,
yeah,
it depends on how Googlebot can render it. Because I still do audits where I see stuff hidden behind fancy tabs and stuff, and Googlebot just can't even see it because of the way their dev has set it up.
But if you put a link on the page to that tab directly, then Googlebot can open it up and use it.
For the most part, yeah. But again, I always defer to the fetch and render, what Google sees in that fetch and render.
Right. Okay, so I was right. Always good to know.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the quality rater guidelines for accordion stuff. I think it might have been mentioned like one of the early ones, but a couple years ago they rewrote the guidelines to specifically be basically for mobile. So like all their screenshots were thrown out and all the mobile screenshots were added. All the ratings are done now on a mobile device unless it's set specifically to do something on a desktop. So
the reason I kind of going down this path is lately I've been reading about a lot of SEOs who think because they can index it that they're actually using it in the rankings. And I think you really need to give that a good thought as to whether it's being used or not.
Well, I mean, that's also easy to test. Just throw it in quotes and put it in Google and see if Google shows the content. Because I've worked with devs and they're like, no, Google can index this fine. I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing a search for it and Google obviously is not seeing it on the page. So there you go.
Right, but I'm saying it's kind of like JavaScript too, where, yeah, they index it, but do they trust it? And do they really give it a lot of value? I've always treated it like they give it very little value at all, unless it actually...
Well, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Currently they give it very little weight right now. But going forward for mobile first, it's going to be a whole different animal when it comes to putting stuff in behind everything. But who knows when that's going to come.
It'll open it up. Mobile opens all that stuff up.
Yeah, that's because Google has come out and said specifically that if you're putting stuff behind accordions on mobile, they're not going to downrank that content behind it. I know I've written about it on the SEM post a couple times because Gary and John have both made comments about it saying that, it's a good thing for usability. So why would they, do you want to load up on a mobile device just this huge long Wikipedia page where you can't find anything? Or do you want to see, the tabs and look specifically, I want to read this section about whatever the topic is.
Right. I've seen strings of text that were behind accordions not show up in Google's index in the past. And I think it's an improvement to start showing them.
Yeah, it all depends on what it is. And sometimes I've seen where it seems that sometimes it's parts of the page are filtered because it's boilerplate stuff, or it's like, for an example, it was an e-commerce site and they rewrote all the main content about the products. So the new description and new but then when you went into the specs tab, it was just copied, it was on hundreds or thousands of other sites. And we couldn't find that when we did a search for it because there was so much other stuff that was identical to it. But the page was ranking fine and the main content, because it was all written all unique content, that part of it was ranking fine, and the overall page was ranking fine.
Right. I've worked
But-
with an e-commerce site where about 4,000 words on the page were boilerplate. Every page.
Yeah, those are the sites that go, oh my God, what are you thinking? It's kind of interesting because so many, you try to tell a site that, yes, okay, you have this data feed, or yes, your supplier gave you all this content. Yes, it could technically be fabulous content, but if 4,000 other pages on the web have this exact identical content, why would Google ever show you?
Yeah.
But if you rewrite it, then you have a much higher chance, because now suddenly you have unique content. You'll have, the supplier page or whoever is ranking the highest for the, the content that's on the 4,000 sites. But now you have a chance to show up in those search results because you have rewritten it.
I did that. It definitely works really well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually worked on an e-commerce site that was, so basically their database and their like stock, the application that they used to manage the stock was feeding data into 2-3 different sites. Some of them were affiliate partners, so they were using someone as brand to have presence. But the problem was that they had exactly this issue that on literally 5 to 6 sites, there was the same description, the same image, and the same like everything, like down to the actual image name showed it being exactly the same. And like in some cases, Google, like on some side it was fine, but on some side they were pretty easily spotted that it was exactly the same. And so basically they had design and like branding on top of but behind the scheme, it was the same data feed that was going to all these platforms.
Did the authority of the site that they placed the content on play a part in whether it was good or bad?
Yeah, these were like kind of they were not someone else's major site. They were using someone else's brand, attaching the keyword of what they were selling, and then they were building a site roughly that on a different domain. So there was no problem. But then what they had to do, I guess, was to rewrite their own. So on their own so on the main site, they started to probably rewrite it and get faster because initially it wasn't the case. It was literally the same. But like if you were doing like things like a reverse search for an image of their product on their site, you were ended up on the other guy's side. That was just like terrible, right? At least crop it, or I don't know, but like I don't know how far you can go with that stuff, but there was literally no added value between the 5 websites.
Yeah, and a lot of people have the thing where, my baby is not ugly, so you try to explain to them why their content isn't going to rank because it's the same as, thousands of other sites. But they're like, but my site, and it's like, it doesn't matter. All these other sites have it first. And, if you do pull out their, whether it's a product code or some description, be like, okay, all these people are appearing for this search. And the reason why you're not is because, see, all these different sites, they all have unique content. But sometimes it's just like, I'm sure all of you have had the experience where it's like fighting against a brick wall and you're like, you need to do this. And they're like, but.
I guess also sometimes it's down to making a commercial decision. Like these sites were bringing some money at the end of the day. So like was down to, cutting like one of the, let's say you have 5 sides, you cut 2 of the small one to power up and push the main one. But then sometimes it's difficult to on the spot to say, oh, by the way, from tomorrow I give away 10% of the revenue, hoping that I'm gonna do a better job on the main side. So they were quite reluctant on chopping, or in some cases you have partnership that is difficult to get out from.
Did we beat content to death?
I think so. We have Doc who's been quiet. I don't know if he's muted or unable to talk. Doc, how are you doing?
I was muted. Howdy. How you doing, everybody?
Good. What's new with you? What's going on?
Oh, just trying to get some stuff done here. Working on about 4 different directions at the same time. Got a client project that finally cut loose. So once you go off about 17 levels of the corporate ladder and you get enough approval to give a go on it, now they want the original due date, so.
That's the toner exchange new logo. If you click on it, we'll get.
So 17 levels of the corporate ladder, huh?
Well, it sure seemed that way. I know it had to go to a committee too. Of course, that slows it down about a week and a half.
I've been had a client set up a committee to answer our questions, and we had a meeting with the committee they set up. And about halfway through the meeting, the committee got together and decided that they were the wrong people. They were the wrong committee.
Good for them. I could have told you that at the beginning, folks.
Yeah, we didn't rub that in, but we did say, yeah, we would like to talk to somebody who could help us with what we're trying to do. And obviously, you're not that group.
Yeah, it makes it fun.
Those clients are so annoying, and yet they pay so well that you can't say no to them. Tesco, which is a big supermarket in the UK, we had stuff that had to go through about 4 separate lawyers before it would be even thought of as going on their blog. And yeah, it's crazy because it seems to be what the whim of whatever executive was in that position at the time. They didn't seem to have a thought out strategy, or maybe it's different now because. But I look at some of the big UK supermarket sites, and their content marketing is just awful. I mean, it's really low level stuff, and it just seems that their procedures and their process. I mean, it's great in a way because the small people have still have an ability to get in there, but these big companies. I don't know what it's like in the US. Is it still like that in the US where they're just not nimble-footed? They can't move very quickly.
Pretty much.
They don't need to.
It depends. It depends on who the client is. Like I worked with the Harvard School of Business, and the dean of the law school had every ability to say, no, I don't like that. Let's do something else. And we would do something else.
Well, I did some work with Gerber, the knife people, and they're a large corporation. They're part of Fiskars. They're a pretty sizable organization, but their VP of Ops made all the calls, and he had some good marketing background, and he knew his way around SEO enough to understand what he didn't know. So you just put it out in front of him, and he'd make a decision on the spot. And it was beautiful, but. By the same token, when I was working with the home office at Fiskars, it was a nightmare. We had to go through Brussels, we had to go through Helsinki, and we had to go through US for every single proposal. And of course, everything ended up in Helsinki, and most of them didn't speak English, so they had to get their interpreters and their lawyers involved, and they'd fire it back down. And it was common that a decision would take 2.5 to 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes that long for in pharmacy. Yeah, but in Google, right? Pharmacy, it's like that. It takes months to add an ad because the pharmaceutical companies vetted by lawyers, and then it goes to Google. But like you can't get an ad for pharmacy on right away. It's got to be vetted by people at Google. It's not like other ads. They're totally different. And it can take up to 24 hours.
I remember we had a quite large campaign for pharmaceutical clients, and even like it was a one-page application website that like ended up having 16 blocks. Like you could read that thing within a minute, and to approve that content took 2 pages. Like and then to approve like after we were running, I guess I think if I remember well, it was like PPC and display. To approve some of that stuff was beyond, and also being a prescription-based drug, you couldn't advertise that directly. So this was just an awareness campaign. It was like a non-brand campaign, not so not affiliated with the brand, saying people, have you got this symptom? Go to the doctor. So like it was far from like advising anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was far from selling any sort of drug. It was literally just trying to get more people to go to the doctor, telling to the doctor, I have this symptom. And then from that, the doctor should have sold the drug, or at least should have prescribed the drug. But like even in that case, it would like even getting approval for us for that campaign was just a nightmare. Yeah. To be honest, I didn't work on the ads, but I remember my colleagues at that time not having so much fun.
If the business was big enough, it would take forever to implement changes. Say you wanted to change the title tag, 2 months, right?
Oh yeah, corporate clients
Yeah.
It can take months to do something that is super like what you think is the most basic.
Right. We have one company that was like one of the largest cable companies in the U.S. and they had chains of redirects 8 levels deep. And
Yeah.
good luck trying to get them to change that.
Yeah.
I
But
had
what Doc said about nimbleness,
Yeah.
with large companies, right, is they were on the internet so long and have built up so much authority to be as nimble. Like they can take 2 months to make changes like that, but they still manage. It's surprising to me, but it's all that they've gained from being on the internet for 20 years.
Sometimes they manage despite themselves.
Yeah.
It's like when the company's getting called in the press for having one of the customer service people show up at somebody's house and fall asleep on their couch instead of doing customer service, and that makes a video on YouTube, and that ranks like 5th on the first page of Google for the business name. Not too good. And
That's like the TTC here. That's the Transportation Commission.
Yeah.
There's a video on the internet of a guy who's sleeping in the booth and people are just walking in and not paying.
Talking about brand, I just noticed that I was checking a famous like jewelry brand, and again, I think on first page or like just between first and second, there was one of the biggest teeth done. So the last thing that you want when you buy a very expensive like I don't know, diamond or like piece of gold is someone to steal it, right? So on the first page, when you're googling that brand, you have like biggest robbery in UK or somewhere, like that shop being robbed too, and emptied completely. That was like, oh come on, like just find something else, right? And don't say it, or like try to find a way not to go on the news. But like, you don't want people that spend 50K on a jewel, like to just even think that thing could disappear tomorrow.
the power of link bait. It's interesting. We had another client who was a supermarket, not Tesco, but another one. I can't really say the name, but they would want reports on every link that was pointed at their site, even when it wasn't a link that we got them. And so I realized then that if you ever wanted to mess with your competitors, that once you know that they have that kind of a client, if you start linking to the client from dodgy websites, then they have to justify to the client why that link is being given, because they don't quite understand that people are giving links just because. They think that every link that is being given is because of what the agency was doing. And it was kind of interesting to explain. But and that
Well,
thinking
if you're
still exists, you know, that the people just don't, you know, still don't understand about how links work or how they're given.
But that's what the agency told them, and they believe it.
Mhm.
Well, when they said to us, we said no, that's not how it works. But they were like, well, we have to do that anyway because that's how it's done. So yeah, it was probably our failure because we weren't able to educate them enough. But a lot of these guys, I just don't, you know, a lot of these corporate executives, they're only in the position for like 6 months or whatever, and then they move on. You know, I find that the smaller businesses so much more in tune with what's going on and willing to learn. Well, some of them have learned, but it's been a while since I've had a corporate client, so maybe I've been banned from.
They're all proper. Some just pay more than others.
I'm sure we can all tell stories if we could negate our NDAs. We could tell some very interesting stories.
So we're getting down to the close of the hour. Why don't we make our way around and tell stories, or tell us what you're going to be up to for next week or so, if you can't tell a story. Doc? You're muted. Fabrizio. No, Doc is here.
Yeah, I'm here. This week, I've got a guy downstairs. We tore out a bunch of carpet. We're putting ceramic tile in the living room downstairs and up on the stairs. So
Nice.
I'm running back and forth to answer questions and order materials and whatnot. In my spare time, I've got another corporate client I've got to have a meeting with at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, my time.
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to that one. And 4 of them to see if we're gonna sign a contract or not. So, and it's one of those people that they don't do PayPal, they don't do direct deposit, they only mail checks. And I'm seriously concerned to tell them to stick it where the sun don't shine right at the beginning of the meeting. You know, if that's a sticking point, then we might as well not waste each other's time.
Fabrizio.
I keep the stories from the offline chat. This week nothing is a short week. We have our company summer days, which is like the company holidays. From like Thursday is a weekend of parties / getting to know each other from all over the world. So
Team building.
Team building, yeah. Plus we do. It's a good chance for like not everyone is that involved in customer support, payment processing, and so on across the company. So it's a good chance to get into the bones of the organization, like not just like building some random landing pages, but understanding how things works in the background. So we do that. Plus we do some other activities and we party a bit. that's what the club is. So I'm flying tomorrow morning to Estonia, unfortunately early in the morning, so I'm asked to run pretty quick now.
Well, it sounds like fun. Have a good time.
Yeah.
Jen, what are you up to over the next week?
Well, I have a bunch of articles to write that kind of got put on the back burner today because of the quality rater guidelines update. So I'll be doing that. And I have another big project I'm working on that's also for the SEM post, but it's kind of like one of those extravagant, huge work in progress. So going to try to knock out a bunch of that coming up this week as well.
It sounds like fun too. Lyndon, what are you up to for next week?
Well, I'm going to be continuing my Twitter experiment, which is basically to retweet as many great tweets as I find about, content marketing, SEO, social media. It's been going, it's only been going a few days, but so yeah, I'm just trying to push the envelope of that and see what happens. It's already given me. It's kind of hard because I've got a bunch of new followers because of it, and some of them are really high quality followers. So I'm not quite sure about continuing the stream of content, which is like one every 15 minutes. So I don't know. So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm pushing it a bit.
It sounds like fun too. Terry, what are you up to for next week?
Oh no, House of Cards was released this morning, so I'll probably be busy for a couple of days.
Yeah, we got the real life House of Cards. Is pretty hard to compete with.
And I actually, for the first time ever, am considering doing a job where I work on commission, basically. It's a client that I've had for a long time. And because of stupid manufacturers that believe map prices are, dealers shouldn't be able to make their own prices. They want you to basically compete with them. Just build another site and not make it traceable and sell the same stuff. Pretty simple, really.
It sort of reminds me of the old days of having a site that did drop shipping.
Yeah, very, very same deal, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also looking at, there's some real opportunities with e-commerce in Canada. I just learned about a designation you can get where basically an e-commerce company can do business in Canada and not have to worry about the border and stuff and not actually have a presence here. It's a special program made to order for e-commerce. What it basically does is the problem with getting goods and services across the borders between Canada and the United States is taxes, because we have a VAT tax here, what the UK would call a VAT, we call GST. Well, that's why things get held up at the border. Customers get angry because they don't realize they have to pay that before they can get the products. I actually had wholesalers in the States that wouldn't work in Canada for that reason. Also, you can't really have a Canadian domain unless you have some kind of presence in Canada. So that would give you that ability as well, to have a legit Canadian domain. So just some things I'm working on. Jen probably knows about it too.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, it reminded me of something I ordered a couple of months ago, and between the UPS brokerage fee and the customs fee, and I paid about 3 times as much for a product as, like, I paid more in fees and customs duty and surcharges and stuff than what the product cost. And it's a real deterrent for Canadians. Like, a lot of times I'm very aware of where I'm ordering something from, because I have to, and how they ship it. Like, a lot of times if it's shipped by the US Postal Service, no problem. But as soon as you get UPS or FedEx or something involved, you have to pay their brokerage fee as well, which is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I think when I was working with one wholesaler in the States selling musical instruments, and we basically put a $19 surcharge on everything. no
Yeah.
matter what you buy.
Yeah. Then on the other hand, I do get annoyed when I try to buy something and I can't get it in Canada. Like
Right.
I was recently trying to buy something and I could not find a single company that was selling this particular product to Canada. And it was super frustrating because it was like the perfect thing I needed. And I actually had to get it shipped to someone in the States, and I picked it up when I was down there.
Yeah. And I found that a lot of small e-commerce sites in the United States don't want to get into that, right? For that reason.
Yep.
This is a very simple, well, you know how easy it is to set up GST in a company in Canada. It's, go to 2 websites, fill out 2 forms, and you're good to go pretty well. If you're legit. And it hooks into one of my clients' business. So
Good to hear. Well, I'm going to do a little blogging and find out more about vending machines, cloud-based vending machines.
Cloud-based vending machines.
Right. Google got a patent for cloud-based vending machines today.
Oh, speaking of Google vending machines, when I was at the airport in Seattle, they have like this vending machine-ish thing that was for Google Fiber. And they had a screen on it and you had to answer trivia questions. And then if you got your trivia question right, this little, basically a box would open up and you'd get the prize, I guess. Like there was Google socks, there was luggage tags, there was, and I don't think I took a picture of it because I did it because I was on my way to my flight and I was just kind of in and out, but I did it and I didn't get my trivia. Like it was stuff like, which of these 4 random, barely heard of countries has the highest population? But it was like set up like a vending machine.
Oh, no.
You spoiled the pattern now. You have the answer. Okay. You found it. Okay.
How do I find out whether or not the airport San Diego has a machine like that? To take a flight somewhere so I can.
It was just like totally random because I just walked past it and yeah, it was weird.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Take care. Have fun.
Bye.
It's good to have you all here.